Look, I'm going to bring up the next guy. He's unique. He's kind of a different act, and he's somebody that we saved for last because otherwise you might have been scared to death. And I know you're going to like him. A nice round of applause for Mr. Phil Van T.
Thank you. My name is Phil Van T. I'm a sick bastard. So here's a joke. A one-armed man walks into a fishing supply store. It's a little autobiographical, yeah. He says to the clerk, I want to buy a fishing rod. Fishing rod, like fly casting. Clerk says, can you really use that, really? The guy says, sure I can. Hand me one, I'll show you. He hands him a fishing rod. He says, look, I cast like this. I hold the rod like this. When I catch something, I reel it in like this. Sales clerk says, wow, that's pretty impressive. You catch a lot? Oh, yeah. What was the biggest one you ever caught? About that big. All right, we've drawn attention to it. Let's leave it at that. I do what's called black humor, dark comedy. These jokes are not for the weak of heart. How many sniveling cowards do we have in the audience today? They usually don't have the guts to raise their hands. I can live with a sniveling coward. As a matter of fact, I do. My girlfriend's scared to death to leave my apartment. Of course, she hasn't been able to chew through the cables yet. I take care of the outside of the house. She takes care of the inside. I'm out there raking leaves and stuff. I hate to rake leaves. I always get them all raked up in a big, neat pile. Neighborhood kids come and swan dive into the middle of them, mess them all up. So I raked a big pile of them over top of a fire hydrant. Cushy. Have a clue, you little weasels. I like the fall. I like the winter. I learned how to drive in the winter. My grandpa taught me how to drive when I was just 12. It was pretty exciting. I never got to ride on the inside before. Grandpa Van T. Taught me how to drive one of these great big old city snow plows, just for a joke, I guess. I was only about 12, right? I'm feeling pretty proud. Then I remembered all those kids in my neighborhood who used to throw snowballs at me with rocks in the middle of them. I thought I'd get even. I stood at the end of the street with it running on idle, and I watched until they started playing in the bottom of their driveways, and then I drove by real fast and covered them over. I set my plow blade on gouge. 6 feet of wet snow packed pretty tight with 8 feet of asphalt sitting up on top of it. Even with an early thaw, Mommy and Daddy are still going to have a little speed bump they can call Junior. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. People don't live real long in Cleveland. Our cemeteries are packed full, right out to the edge of the street. There's usually a whole row of little feet sticking out from the curb. I like to drive by with a big stick and go, and I laugh for hours. The house I was raised in was situated right next door to a crematorium. I used to play out back in what I thought was a sandbox. Jealous? You should be. I brought home a shitload of jewelry. Fourth grade show and tell, I took in what I thought was a $10. Turned out to be a kneecap. That was. I was raised by a nanny who insisted that we call her Vlad the Impaler. She used to make us play musical chairs to death marches. It's so hard to tell when those things end. Vlad was huge. She stood about 8 hands tall. I don't mean to say she looked a lot like a horse, but I watched her riding one once and it looked like they were mating. That's how she sneezed. Vlad the Impaler. She was huge. She hated me. I hated eating because she was the cook. Our table setting always consisted of a knife, a fork, and a pistol. We had our choice, eat the swill or take our own life. I tried shooting Vlad, but she caught the bullets in her teeth and spat them back at me. She missed one of them, went clean through. Now she's got a little hole in the back of her neck like Flipper. If she yawns into a fan, she can make it play a little tune. My 3 sons. Vlad the Impaler. She hated me. When I was about this big, she noticed I liked to jump up and down on my bed, and I did, so she installed a ceiling fan. Like I didn't get teased enough in school all the time. Philip, do you always dress that way? Yes, ma'am. Student government day. I'm the coroner. You've been a great crowd. I got one last thing I want to tell you. This is sort of a joke. You can take this one home with you, courtesy of Phil Van T. 2 guys sitting in a bar, a hunchback named Harry and a guy with 1 leg named Sid. Guy with 1 leg, what a loser. Harry says, I'm all in, I'm going to take off, I'm going to go home, I'm going to go through the cemetery. Sid says, don't do that. You go by that big headstone in the middle of the cemetery, a big old spook will jump out and get you. Harry says, I don't believe in that. He goes walking off through the cemetery. Sure enough, as he goes by the big headstone in the middle, big old spook jumps out and goes, brrr. Harry says, don't hurt me, Spook. Spook says, I'm just kidding with you. What's that thing on your back? Harry says, it's a hump. He says, well, give it to me. Harry stands up straight. Wow, thanks, Spook. He goes running back to tell Sid. Sid says, do you think he can do anything with my missing leg? He says, well, it's worth a shot. So Sid goes loping through the cemetery, goes by the big old headstone in the middle. Sure enough, big old Spook jumps out. Sid says, don't hurt me, Spook. Spook says, I ain't going to hurt you. What's that thing on your back? Sid says, I don't have anything on my back. He says, here, have this hump. You've been great. My name's Phil Van T. Good night.